A reading from Matthew chapter 21 verses 1 to 11. When they had come near Jerusalem and had reached Bethphage at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, just say this: 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them immediately." This took place to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet, saying, "Tell the daughter of Zion, look, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, and on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus had directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt, and put their coats on them, and he sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and that followed were shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest heaven!" When he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was in turmoil, asking, "Who is this?" The crowds were saying, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee." A reflection based on the Gospel reading of Matthew 21, 1 to 11. It is quite difficult to be spontaneous at the moment. We have to think and consider our every move. Who will we meet? Will we be safe? Do I really need to put myself in that place or situation? What can I do to keep myself and others safe? Even arranged events, concerts, tours, plays, sports, etc. are being cancelled or postponed to some future date when we hope that our current situation will be over. I like to imagine the story of Jesus' entry to Jerusalem as something unplanned, a spontaneous happening that captured the imagination of the people and of Jesus. Maybe Jesus had simply noticed the donkey as he passed by and thought, in the midst of growing opposition and tension, this might be fun. The city was getting ready for the celebration of Passover, and many other pilgrims were heading to Jerusalem to be at the temple for this major festival. Recognizing the religious fervour and the nationalistic pride that had come to the fore, along with the sense of celebration and joy of people gathering to praise and recognize the freedom God had handed to them, not insignificant for an occupied people. I like to think of this as Jesus responding to the moment. Maybe it was just what was needed, a moment away from everything else that was going on. In that moment, Jesus does not think about the consequences or implications of what he does. Yes, the story is full of imagery relating to the Hebrew scriptures, saying about arriving in peace rather than threat. But in this moment, there was no thought of the growing hostility toward him from the religious elite, who also held great political influence. He was one with the people, all united in this particular moment under the banner of Hosanna. Though I wonder if people really knew who this man on a donkey was. I'm not convinced that the people were doing anything more than responding to the moment as well. It's a bit like the atmosphere around us as we approach Christmas. Some people attend church who would never come any other time of the year. There can be a great atmosphere among shoppers and goodwill felt toward all people. There can also be the frantic last-minuters who may be running around like headless chickens, and into that chaos, Jesus enters, riding a donkey, praising God. It is easy to be caught up in it all, and be where there is joy. Whether good or bad, whenever something happens, it is likely to draw a crowd. Much has been made of a fickle crowd who later in the week shout "Crucify" toward Jesus, but I'm not convinced that it is the same crowd, or that people were welcoming Jesus as a Messiah, or prophet, or new king. The whole city, in turmoil, asked who he was. Were they merely caught up in the moment, responding to a celebration, belonging in the crowd, and going with the flow as this group of people shouted their praises. I wonder if it would have passed unnoticed if Jesus hadn't gone into the temple and caused such a ruckus, and disturbed the religious pride and norm of the temple worship, and upset the money. Now in that act, Jesus was making a statement. The entry to Jerusalem story reminds us of the need to live in the moment, to be aware of others now, and to see how God is here with us, working through us, and seeing the opportunities to share God's love in this moment, wherever we are, with whatever restrictions we face. In this moment, we can look forward to the time which will come, when we can gather and celebrate and praise and shout Hosanna and enjoy the moment together. Loving God, help us to see you in this moment, whether I am in isolation alone or with others, whether I am fearful of others or long to hold and embrace another. Enable me to celebrate and praise despite the situation we find ourselves in, and find your presence amongst us. Amen.